Our next question is from Leanne.
Hi, gang. It's Leanne from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania again. I would like to talk about holiday traditions and discuss the real costs of such traditions. For example, Thanksgiving dinner. My mother, who was in her mid-70s, initially felt the need to serve 8+ dishes because she said, it's what we do. She knows I've been following your podcast, and she was open to hearing me out in reference to the real cost of such a feast. Not only the money, but time spent shopping, preparing, cleaning up, etc. I then reminded her that she's always in the kitchen after the meal, toiling with this and that, while everyone else is lounging around and spending time together. She misses out on the true meaning of the holiday, which is being together with family. She appreciated my perspective and decided to ask all to bring a dish to help out this year. Don't get me wrong, some traditions are worth preserving, but you have to figure in at what cost. I think the sense of keeping up such traditions still falls mostly on women, and it shouldn't. Thoughts and thanks. Take care.
I definitely have some thoughts about the lies that we're told through tradition quite often. This is the way we've always done it. Why are you doing that? Well, that's just the way we've always done it. As if that's a good reason to keep doing something, right? And the reason that I wanted to talk about this question today is in the book, Alex, it's sort of question that assumption. If we keep doing things the way we've always done it, we end up at a dead end. Oh, we've always driven this way. Wait, if you keep driving that way, there's a giant brick wall you're going to run into. And quite literally, you're seeing that in the book. And I won't give any spoilers here, but we're driving toward, as Dr. Bush talked about, an extinction event, but it's also about my life right now as well. And I'm continuing to drive this way because this is the way we've always done it. Now, I'm not against tradition just for the sake of being against, I'm not anti-tradition, but we rarely stop to question some of those traditions. And I think that's when we end up in these troubled waters.
Yeah, actually, a lot of the book is about this family realizing, it's the process of realizing that what they're doing isn't working on several levels. Not only, the modern day farmer in this book, but his family and people that he's close to. What they're doing isn't working. And it's very difficult to get out of those ruts, right? Momentum is a real thing. Mm-hmm. And so, and there's generational momentum and then there's momentum within ourselves where we've always done things a certain way. There comes a point in this book, which isn't a spoiler alert, where this farmer is confronted with the fact of, there's a better way to do this. That's better for you. It's better for your mental health. It's better for the soil health. It's better for everybody. And he's stuck in it. And he's saying, well, this is just how we've always done it, like you're saying, right? And the person who's confronting him gets real frustrated because that person's saying, hey, you didn't know better then. You know better now. And that's something that this question is speaking to, right? If you know better, then it's on you to make the change, right? And that's a really hard break to make sometimes in relationships, in the way you're eating, like whatever it might be. But if you know better, it's on you. And so what she's addressing there is totally legitimate. I remember recently I read something about how some Norman Rock, whatever, what's that guy's name?
Norman Rockwell.
That guy. So his painting or drawing or whatever of Thanksgiving, what I was reading, like ruined it for everybody because it's this idyllic kind of, everybody's around this amazing feast and it's this thing that we're trying to aspire to when there's really no basis for that. You know what I mean? There's no like fact or anything that's based on. And I agree with the caller. Like it's about this holiday is about family. Not everybody's got it, right? And so, and I've been there too, where I've been the single guy at Thanksgiving and wondering, what am I going to do this year? There's other things you can do. You can turn it into a different kind of tradition if you want to hold on to traditions. You can go down to a shelter and volunteer, right? You can not even go to a shelter. You can just go to folks that are having a hard time on the street and help them out however you see fit. But this idea of tradition, it's this, to me, it builds in or feeds into this momentum idea, which is just so hard to break, and it's really, I don't know, it's a challenge. But I guess my point is that if you know better, do better.
I'm intrigued by your point there around this, we've always done it this way. And it's so funny when you realize how short the memory of humans are, because the fact is we haven't done Thanksgiving like we've done Thanksgiving for more than maybe 3 generations, something like that. And it's like, well, actually for the last few hundred years, it was done much differently. And then we looked to the agricultural system. We do see farmers every day. With Farmers Footprint, my nonprofit, we're confronting every day this thing that says, well, we've always done it that way. And it's actually just like a quick little 30,000 foot check to say, actually, did your great grandfather do that? And he's like, no, absolutely no. Did your grandfather do that? Oh, no, actually these chemicals didn't come out until my dad. So you're telling me that 1.5 generations is the norm that you're now following and feel unable to break. And so we have such short memory spans in regards to humanity that we don't remember that for 40,000 years, 625 nations lived here in North America in coherent relationship to their land and had a more complex agricultural system, and were producing more food per capita than Europe was. When the colonists arrived here, they degraded this land in just a couple hundred years to the point where it cannot produce anything without massive chemical inputs that destroy the ecosystem. And so in 200 years, we destroyed a 40,000-year agricultural system that created more abundance. The soil was healthier, not less healthy. They understood compost. They understand crop rotation. They understand the resilience and importance of not disturbing mycelial networks in soil and biodiversity within the crops and all this stuff. And so it's this control of our mentality of what is normal is so outsourced to our media and to our consumer behavior that we have a very hard time. I don't think we're empowered to ask what's normal. And in agriculture, it's hilarious because they call chemical farming conventional agriculture. It's like, that has never been the convention. That's a 50-year-old, technologic poisoning of the planet. That is not conventional.
And that's another marketing term.
Yeah. And they've done the same thing to medicine. Suddenly, if you're not practicing pharmaceutical allopathic, then you're an alternative medicine doctor. Wait, I'm alternative now to what? Alternative to history? So they've just branded it so brilliantly that you're crazy or you're nouveau or you're not realistic if you do the thing that's been done for 40,000 years.
Yeah, and you're not progressive. We've progressed our way toward extinction. We have created a world in which we are constantly improving, not questioning the improving, right? If an improvement leads you like, well, yeah, but always growing is important. Well, a tumor is also growth. They're great growth, If you go to the gym and you're working out and you feel like, oh, my muscles are growing, it's making me more stable and healthier. Wonderful, right? That's one type of growth, but growth for the sake of growth isn't inherently good or bad. What kind of growth and which way am I growing?
Yeah, it's interesting too how the concept of a holiday is a holy day, which represents that which a society deems to be sacred and chooses to celebrate on that day. And we're creating all of these holy days around consumerism. Taco Tuesday, right? Mimosa Monday, Cyber Wednesday, Black Friday, and we're building it into our concept of a day, and we're essentially being manipulated into treating things that are dispensable as if they are sacred, as if we could not do without them. And it's changing the way we think about this idea of how we honor what the real essence of a day is. But, when I think about tradition, I think about a historian, I think it's Jaroslav Pelikan, who said that there's a difference between traditionalism and tradition. Traditionalism is the dead faith of the living. Tradition is the living faith of the dead. And traditionalism is when you hold on to something for no other reason than that's what the dead people used to do. It didn't save them. It didn't help them. But hey, the ancients used to do it. But tradition is when you say, we hold on to this because it's life-giving, it's transformative, and that's why the ones who came before us did it. But we don't do it because they did it. We do it because of the results it produces in our lives. Tradition can never be more powerful than the why that fuels it. And what I love about Leanne's story and her question is that she didn't stand back and condemn. She didn't preach. She didn't yell at her, but she went to her and opened her eyes to the same possibility that she saw so that she could see the why behind the tradition. And then she's able to honor what is truly sacred about that tradition in a more direct, efficient way.
What I hear you saying is that this is the way we've always done it. Is a terrible reason to hold on. Now, there might be great reasons to hold on to a tradition that we have, but it's not just because that's the way they did it yesterday, or that's the way they did it a decade ago. Quite often, that's a terrible reason to hold on. So we can let go of past traditions and create new ones that are empowering and serving us as a family, as a community, as a habitat, as a planet. Or we can keep clinging to the things that weren't working for us and wonder why we continue to be miserable every holiday season.
You know, he brought up an important point that I want to highlight real quick, is that he was referring to the caller as not condemning the other person. And I think that's super important. Condemnation doesn't work. You know, it just doesn't. It's one of those things where I was very careful. Even, you know, there's some bad players, so to speak, in this book, but even those guys, you know, some of these big corporations, you can't condemn them, and you can't condemn the people who are using the products, using glyphosate, for example, when that's all they knew, and that's just what you did, and they were told it was safe, and they're like, okay, you can't condemn those farmers in 1990, right? Once they start knowing better, then the conversation can shift a little bit, but like nothing works with condemnation.
Alex, you had a story about this you shared before we started. Would you mind sharing that about how you experienced that exact thing by simply giving someone the book without telling them? Yeah.
Right. So I have a friend who works for a company that is a very large retailer, and they sell a lot of this particular product that we're end up talking about here. And he's a good friend of mine. You know, he's a conservative guy, and he's in the South. And I sent him this book, and he took him like a day and a half to read it. And I got an email and a flurry of texts from him basically saying, oh my God, you know, and because it opened a door for him to go do his own research and learn things for himself. The book, I think, as you said, is not didactic. It's not telling anybody what to do. It's just opening a door, right? And using storytelling to open that door. And so with this friend who is like I said, it's a ginormous retailer of this bad product, so to speak, it got him thinking. And it encouraged him to go do his own research and kind of make up his own mind. You know, that's another thing that doesn't work. Telling people what to do doesn't work.
Yeah, I think if you had sent him the book and said, hey, Chaz, you know what? I just imagine anyone who sells Roundup, his name Chaz. Hey, Chaz, you know what? This book is going to tell you what you should do.
Yes.
There are no shoulds here. There are infinite coulds, infinite possibilities of where we can go from here. Let me show you the landscape.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this book is looking at kind of the last 30 years, and it's going to help everyone listening here to really start to account for those hidden costs that we were talking about earlier. This is basically my last 15 years of my life in my basic science laboratory, told through a much better lens, which is through the life of a farmer. So my basic science began with cancer research and chemotherapy development, and ultimately took me towards soil health and realizing that our relationship to chemical agriculture was driving our cancer epidemic. And no matter how good their chemotherapy gets, we're not going to win this game of the cancer epidemic. In fact, you know, every year it's going to get worse because we're actually, in our unawareness of the problem, every one of our consumer behaviors is playing directly into this equation. And so there's literally not a thing that you're doing in your life right now. If you drive your car, if you go put on a shirt, if you go, you know, grab a cup of coffee, everything is playing back into this equation of this hidden cost, which is our relationship to the chemical industry. And the chemical industry has so imbued itself in our culture that there's literally not an action you can take. You can't go to your doctor, you can't, you know, go to your school without playing into their hands. And that's not a they of humans, it's a they of a human perception or philosophy. And so I think this is an exciting book that is going to open doors in your heart first, which is important because really this is a story about compassion. And when all of us start to realize that our behaviors are not just poisoning soil or poisoning humanity into our extinction, we're breaking hearts. And I think that that's probably the most concerning part to me, is that if we go extinct, I mean, from a human standpoint, we could think that's a really bad thing. But as a hospice doctor, I've never seen a death that looked like an endpoint. It's all this explosion of realization of who we are, why we're here, why the journey looked like it did. And the way in which you see guilt, fear, and shame fall away is sit at the deathbed of somebody who just got to glance past the veil and see their life in the context of the fact that they actually are nature. They are the fabric of the universe, and they can see the patterns that just played out and why they played out. And not once do they move past that veil with fear, guilt, and shame carried into that beautiful future. And so if we need this death cycle, if we need the hospice moment and perhaps the passage of human life into our next iteration, so be it. But let's be aware and let's be in love with each other, and let's have compassion on the heartbreak of the end. Let's miss what is going to be, disappearing as we let go of these bodies. And so I'm really excited that this book is really getting at the essence of the story of, are we going extinct or not? Isn't the story, are we actually in love with life or not?
I hope you enjoyed that highlight. If you'd like to see another one, check out this video right here. If you'd like to see that full episode, check out this video here. Or if you'd like to dive deep into the full private podcast, subscribe via the Patreon link in the description. Your support on Patreon is what allows us to keep this podcast 100% advertisement free.